the great virtues or the characteristics of the Buddha. So I could manage to explain only 3 items. I have to stop there after explaining the meaning of Vidya Charana Sampanna. 8 kind of Vidya and 15 kinds of morals and conducts. Why it is necessary for us to know the significance of these characteristics? People always come and complain that some others criticize and condemn and ridicule when they pay respect to the Buddha image, saying that they are worshipping, praying to idols. And they do not know what to say. Although they have been doing this for generations, still they do not know how to convince or how to defend. So when you come to know the meaning of this word, then you can understand to whom that you are worshipping. Whether you are worshipping to an idol, or whether you are worshipping to an ordinary man, or an ordinary teacher, or a wise man, and you can understand. Then you can gain your confidence why we should worship. Otherwise, there is no clear understanding to justify this act of worshipping or praying to any images. Last Friday I have told you, usually people worship and respect to a powerful God, thinking that God is the creator. He is the one who punishes us for our evil deeds. He is the one who rewards us for our good deeds. He is the one who protects us. Therefore they worship. But when you study the nature of the Buddha or the enlightenment or the Buddhahood or his teaching, there is no place where he mentioned that the Buddha is the creator of this world. He has never said he is the one who punishes you for all your bad deeds. He has never said he is the one who rewards you for your good deeds. He did not promise to protect you. But he has taught us how to protect ourselves without depending on another person. And then why do you worship him? And the answer is here. When you analyze, you can understand there is no another teacher who possessed the same great qualities and the virtues and knowledge and wisdoms and enlightenment. There may be powerful ones and very wise teachers, very influential people, but their virtues and the characteristics are limited. So far I have explained amongst hundreds and thousands of great virtues of the Buddha, we have summarized and categorized into 9. That is what we recite every time when we pay homage to the Buddha. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vidyacharana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisadhamma Sarathi Sattha Deva Manussanam Buddho Bhagava. These are the 9 characteristics. We are going on repeating and repeating and repeating. If we can understand the real meaning of this word, then we gain more confidence. To understand why we worship, why it is necessary for us to pay respect. So the next item tonight is after Vidyacharana Sampanno Sugata. There are 3 meanings. Sugata. One meaning is one who speaks gently and politely. Gentle speech and soothing words. Or the teacher who never uttered any rough and tough and uncultured or abusive language. In fact, after his passing away, when the dead bodies of the Buddha carried away for cremation, thousands of people, most of them were non-Buddhist, because at that time there were few Buddhists in India. But the followers of other religions also respected this great teacher. So there was one voice amongst those thousands of people who assembled to pay their respect. So what did they say? This is the dead body of a man who never uttered even one word to hurt others' feelings. Everybody knew the nature of the Buddha, although they were not Buddhist. That is what this word Sugata, the teacher who always speaks gently, politely, without hurting or disturbing others. Again, the power of the Buddha still exists, although his physical body disappeared from this world. And the power of the word uttered by the Buddha are still very powerful, and people experience very good result. Those who have developed their devotion, confidence and understanding. Millions of people are benefited. For that we had to develop our confidence and understanding. By following the word, by uttering the word, by reciting the word uttered by the Buddha as sutras or recitals, people gain solace, satisfaction, protection, because these words were uttered by a religious teacher who never uttered a lie, who never uttered a bad word, who never uttered a word to disturb others. Nobody else can say this. This is the nature of Sugata, the Buddha. Another meaning is Sugata. Gata means gone. One who has gone, that means one who has attained Nibbanic bliss. After fulfilling his mission, enlightening others, he passed away. His physical body disintegrated. The Buddha body is disappeared, but he attained the Nibbanic bliss. So another meaning of Sugata means one who attained the Nibbanic bliss after fulfilling his mission. Third meaning is the person who gained his enlightenment by following the same path, same method, but not by following another method. That means different Buddhas have no different path or different method. All those bodhisattvas who work for gaining their enlightenment must fulfill all the 10 perfections, must cultivate their mind, eradicate all the evil thought, cultivate all the good thought, and serve the mankind, not only to mankind, to every living being. By following this method, so every bodhisattva gain his enlightenment. So the Sakya Muni or the Gautama the Buddha also followed the same method, practiced or followed by the previous Buddhas. In time to come, the future Buddhas also practice and follow the same method and gain their enlightenment. There is no shortcut. Although people can produce Buddhas from time to time in different countries, they are mythologies, imaginations, mere belief, but no truth. Next one, Loka Vidu. This one is simple. Loka means world. Vidu, knower. Knower of the world. One who knows what this world is. When we analyze the nature of the world system, according to our scientific knowledge or astronomy, or by using various other techniques, we can understand or we can survey only a limited number of world systems. No one can go beyond that. But by using his enlightenment, he realized the real nature of the world system. When he said at that time, there are thousands of suns and thousands of moons in the space, people could not understand, because they have never heard that there are many suns and many moons. Today, astronomers have already discovered there are many suns and many moons, but unknown, unseen suns and moons are there, so many. So in his teaching, he said there are thousands of moons and thousands of suns. Different world system. Dasa Sahasri, Sapta Sahasri, Loka Dhatu, world system. In one place, Dasa Sahasri, 10,000 world system. In another discourse, Sapta Sahasri Loka Dhatu, 100,000 world system. Then again, thousands and thousands, millions of millions world system. In the end, Anamataggoyang bhikkhave sansaro pubbha kotida panyayati. He said, infinite. There is no end. There is nobody in this world who can find out the end of the world system. And this is the nature of the world. But this is also very simple. Again, 31 planes of existence, different forms of living beings. In one particular planet, sometimes we can see all of them. But in certain other world systems, only few of them. In certain world system, only one. This is the nature of existence, categorized into 31 groups, living beings. But we can see only humans, animals, only these two groups. But invisible living beings also exist here on this earth. Spirits, ghosts, and devas also exist. But we cannot see them through our naked eyes. Then Kamaloka, Rupaloka, Arupaloka. Again, the whole universe divided into 3 groups. This you can find only in the Buddha's teaching. Kamaloka, sensual world, human beings, animals, devas, where they experience or indulge their senses. And this is called Kamaloka. Kama means lust, lustful thoughts appear in our mind, then we use our 5 senses to grasp certain object to satisfy our craving. And this is the way how we experience pleasure in this Kama Loka, sensual world. All our problems, worries and difficulties, unhappiness and calamities and misunderstanding, enmity and jealousy and anger are based on this. Because of this sensual pleasure. Otherwise, we never face these problems. Again, we are going on bluffing and swindling and cheating others to indulge, to enjoy, to experience. Because of this Kama Loka. After violating and committing all those immoral, painful action, in return we experience the bad effect within this lifetime and hereafter. So we are going on circulating, going round and round. Within this Kamaloka, sensual world, experiencing more and more unpleasant or unhappy, unsatisfactory life. And the main cause is our craving for sensual pleasure. But this is the nature of this world. But understanding people, by realizing that we are facing all these problems because of this attitude, they try to curtail, they try to reduce. They go on training and training and reducing and reducing. Then they experience more peace, more satisfaction, more calmness in their life. Anyone can experience this. When we reduce our responsibilities, when we reduce our crazy attitude towards so many pleasures, within few days time we can experience some sort of calmness, some sort of peace, satisfaction. When we reduce the burdens, we can experience this. Not necessary to depend on philosophy or teachings or religion, our own experience. Then, Rupaloka, another world system. In English, we use the word fine material world. Most of them are Brahma realm, the world where Brahmas experience more happiness, more satisfaction, more peace in their life. They have gone beyond this Kamaloka, sensual world. Their way of experiencing worldly pleasures only by using few senses, but not all the five senses, because they are not interested. They have reduced, closed down certain departments to gain more peace and more happiness. This you also can experience when you meditate. During that time, you close down your senses, your five senses. You stop your imagination at that time. That is the only time that you can experience some sort of calmness. The mind gets the chance to relax. Otherwise, all the while, mind must be active, either to accept or to reject, to experience. When you stop all these things, then calmness prevails in the mind. So in this Brahma world, who have cultivated their mind when they were human beings, also experience more peace and happiness, but temporary, not permanent, since they have not eradicated their defilements completely. The story that you can read in Dhammapada is a very good example. The monk who was meditating suddenly died in the same meditation posture when he was meditating. And rebirth took place in one of the Devalokas. In that particular Devaloka also, this person was sitting and meditating. Then all the other devas found out this is a very peculiar type of devas, because the heavenly life or Devaloka is not for people to go there and meditate, but to enjoy worldly life. But this particular person was sitting and meditating, and they knew something is wrong somewhere. They knew. So what they did? They kept a big mirror in front of him. When he saw his figure there, he found out he's no more a monk. It's an entirely different person. Then rebirth has taken place there as one of the devas, but not in the form of a monk. But the mind is still working in the same track. Now this is a very good example or lesson for us to learn how rebirth takes place according to our way of thinking, how our mind works at the last moment when we are dying. Rebirth takes place according to this. So, in the Buddha's teaching, it is mentioned how these devas, they have very luminous, very fine and very beautiful, attractive physical formation, and they develop their craving also towards this fine material world. That means craving is still there. Now this is another world system. Then the last one is called Arupa Loka. Rupa means formation, means no. That is called immaterial. No elements, no formation, no visible figure, but life is there. So one particular type of meditation, by concentrating the nature of the physical formation, burdens of this physical body, sufferings and problems of this physical body, when they are disgusted, they develop this loathsomeness. That means they have no more craving toward this physical body anymore. Now, all the while, we are devoting, we are spending everything to maintain this physical body, to look after, to feed, to wash, to clean, to decorate, to beautify. In the end, we have to drop this one here and go away without any physical body. So, when they develop this meditation, by realizing the real nature, if the purities and the qualities are there in that mind, then rebirth can take place in this Arupaloka. That means the life exists without any visible physical body. That means they are completely free from all the burdens and responsibilities and the ache and pain that we are experiencing. Free from sicknesses, free from old age, free from burdens of the physical body, and no feeding, no bathing, no clothing, nothing. Maintain mental calmness there. After gaining or attaining this higher stage, according to the religion that existed in India at that time, they believe that is the final goal. That is moksha. That is nirvana. So the Buddha is the only religious teacher who pointed out that it is not the final goal. Formless or immaterial world system. So, by realizing the real nature of this Kamaloka, Rupaloka, Arupaloka, where living beings exist in different forms. The Buddha is known as Lokavidu, knower of the world. Next one, Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarathi. Incomparable. Purisa Dhamma. Dhamma means training. Purisa means human beings. One who can train untrainable human beings. There are many stories. How he trained the most wicked, cruel, dangerous human beings and non-human beings by using his technique, his enlightenment, his wisdom, his Dhamma. You have heard many of those stories. How he trained Angulimala, the murderer, who has murdered more than 1,000 human beings. Even king did not want to go there with his battalion, with his army to catch this man. All of them were scared of him. The Buddha went to see him alone, even without any disciples. He went alone. He met him. So these bandits, this murderer, wanted to catch him and kill him. And you know the story. He could not catch him. He walked and walked and run and run and run and run. He could not catch him. In the end he had to surrender. Then he explained why it is difficult for him to catch the Buddha. Then the Buddha said, you cannot catch me because you run. If you stop your running, you can catch me. Then here what does it mean? Then you want to know. I have stopped running long ago, but you are still running. He says, still I cannot understand. I have stopped running means I have stopped all the evil, wicked, harmful acts such as killing and destroying and harming others. That is the meaning of saying, I have stopped. I said, you are running. You are killing and destroying and disturbing others. So you are running. Again you want to run within this cycle of birth and death while suffering. But I have stopped this cycle of birth and death, no more suffering for me. That is the meaning of stop. Then he says, very interesting. Can I follow you? Why not? Then he threw away his sword, followed the Buddha. The same day he was ordained as a monk. And later, this murderer has attained Arahanta, because he has not committed any of those mortal sins. If anyone has committed one of them, no one can attain Arahanta within that lifetime. So he became an Arahant. And see the method that he used to train such gangsters or murderers. Again, the cannibal Alavaka who lived on human flesh, lived in a cave in the jungle. The Buddha went to see this man. He went alone. When he visited this place, he was not there but his attendant. He was a nice man. When asked the Buddha, please don't come here. He is a very dangerous man here in this cave. Why did you come here? Then the Buddha said, don't worry about me. I know how to look after myself. He went inside his cave and sat down. And when this cannibal or the devil, Alavaka, he saw somebody sitting in his seat. Then, who is this man who had the courage to enter into my cave? So he wanted to kill him by torturing. Just like a cat who kills a rat, The cat doesn't kill the rat at once, by carrying here and there and playing and playing and playing. So in the same manner, this man wanted to kill the Buddha. Then he came and shouted at him. The Buddha said, get out. Then the Buddha got up and walked. Then he said, come here. He came back. Sit down. Again he sit down. Again he said, get up. He got up. Get out. He went out. Come here. He came back. Sit down. He sit down. Again he said, get up. 3 times he obeyed. 4th time, when he said, get out, then the Buddha said, he stood like a giant this time, the Buddha. He said, Nakkāhantaṃ āvasopasāmi sadevike loke samarake sabrahmake sasamana brahmaniya pajaya sadeva manusāya. Hey, look here. You said that you are going to kill me, torture me. There is nobody in this whole universe, not only on this earth, either in Devaloka or Brahmaloka or among the Maras or Brahmas or devils or ghosts. There is nobody in this world who can do that for me, who can kill me. If you want, you can try, come. I must understand, the Buddha is not a yes man, always. When it is necessary, stand firmly. All right, come on. Then this man, this fellow is a terrible fellow. He must be somebody, Otherwise, how can he challenge like this? He had to surrender his pride. He had to surrender. No other choice. Because this is the technique he had to use at that time. Then he is also a very clever man. He said, all right. Now I am going to ask certain questions. If I am not going to answer my question, again I will split your heart and throw you away, and take by taking your legs and throw you about the other bank of the river. There's a big river around that area. Then the Buddha said, again you are going to challenge. All right, you better try and see if you want to do that. Then the Buddha says, without talking rubbish, he said, if you have any questions, you can ask. Then he asked this question. Kim sudhavittam purisasya settam kim suchinno sukhamahati kim suhavesādhutarang rasanam kathang jīvin jīvitamahu settam. There are few questions here. Kim sudhavittam purisasya settam. what is the highest wealth for man in this world? Then the Buddha said, Saddhi Davittam Purisassa Settang. The highest wealth for a man in this world is his confidence, not the diamonds or gold. Without confidence, we cannot do anything in this world. To lead your household life, your married life, your business, your religious life, anything, you must have confidence. Develop this confidence. This will become the highest wealth, property, for you to go ahead with confidence. Very deep meaning. So there are so many stories during the 45 years how he spent his life. Therefore he is known as Purisa Dhamma Sarathi, the teacher, incomparable teacher, who can train untrainable human beings and other living beings. And now you can understand why we worship him, why we respect him. Next one, Sattha Deva Manusana. Sattha means teacher. Deva Manusanam, humans and devas. The teacher of human being, the teacher of Deva, the teacher of God. Sattha Deva Manusana. So, the Buddha is not the son of God, he is a teacher of God. Remember this. When you read one particular chapter in Samyutta Nikaya Sutra Pitaka, that is called Devata Samyutta, dialogue, discussion, sermons given by the Buddha to those devas, gods, Brahmas. Usually they appear after midnight, when there are no more human beings around that area. Very interesting discussions and dialogue. You can find in Samyutta Nikaya Sutra Pitaka. When they had so many problems which they could not understand, they used to visit the Buddha and discuss with him to know Mangala Sutta. So they had argument regarding this. What is real Mangala? What is real blessing? What is real auspicious thing? So they had different opinions. So when they could not come to any conclusion, so decided to come and discuss and get the correct answer. So then they came and asked, what is the highest blessing? Then the Buddha started explaining one by one. Asevana cha balanam, panditanam cha sevana, puja cha pujaniyanam, etang mangalam uttamam. This is the highest blessing. 3. Asevana cha balanam. Not to follow those who have low mentality, very mean attitude, those who have stupid ideas, not to follow them. If you follow them, you get into trouble. If you can keep away from them, this will become a blessing. This is a blessing. Panditanam cha serana. Again, Parabhava Sutta. When they came and asked, what are the causes for the downfall of human being? Again he started. All human morals and ethics, responsibilities, how to maintain human dignity, how to live as real human beings. Again he started. All human morals and ethics, responsibilities, how to maintain human dignity, how to live as real human beings. There you can find in Parabhava Sutta, without allowing to distort or to disturb our human life. There you can see Ittidutto, Suradutto, Akkadutto, Chayonaro, Labdhang, Labdhang, Vinaseti, Tang, Parabhavato, Mukham. Parabhava, decline, fall down. Those who follow this way of life get into trouble. Ittidutto, those who follow other women, married people, go out with other women by telling lies and bluffing, swindling, and doing all sort of immoral things. One day this will become the cause of his downfall, the Buddha says. Suradutto, one who is addicted to drinking, for drinking and drugs and this and that, all sort of things. And he ruined his whole life, he ruined his family, become the cause of his downfall. Akkadutto, one who used to go and waste whatever they have earned by gambling. Gambling become the cause of your downfall. Labdhang, labdhang vinaseti, whatever you have earned, everything disappears, ruin. Tang parabhavato mukhang. This is the cause of your downfall. This is the way how he has trained people by cultivating morals and ethics, by maintaining our dignity. He did not introduce a religion for us to follow, just to spend our time only for worshipping and praying and praying and praying, but by maintaining these good qualities and by keeping away from those things which become the cause of our downfall. Definitely we have to pay the price for the mistake committed by us. Therefore he is known as the teacher of Devas. Whenever they had problems, he advised them. Whenever human beings had so many problems, he advised them, he guided them. So the teacher, his duty is to train, to guide, to show the correct path. Then, Buddha. Buddha and Samma Sambuddha. There are two words here. Samma Sambuddha we have completed at the beginning. Supreme enlightened the Buddha. Samma Sambuddha. The Buddha, here we don't use the word supreme enlightened. Buddha means awakened one. One who never sleeps. Awakened. Although we do not go to bed, we are sleeping. That means we do not know what is happening around this area. We are sleeping. But the Buddha never sleeps in that way. Awareness of everything what is happening is appear. also relax only 2-3 hours a day. It is not sleeping. He does not sleep. Relax his physical body only few hours. Even then, awareness is there. That is why he is known as awakened Shiva. He can understand what is happening in any part of the universe. So one who realized through proper perspective the nature of Four Noble Truths, Dukkha, Samudaya, Nirodha, Magga, that person is called the Buddha. There are many more names. Every name gives different meaning. The qualities, the nature of his wisdom. Buddho, Dasabalo, Sattha, Sabbanya, Dipaduttamo, Munindo, Bhagava, Natho, Chakkuma, Angiraso, Muni, Lokanatho, Nadivaro, Mahesi, Vinayako, Samanta Chakku, Sugato, Bhuripanyocha, Maraji, Narasiho, Naravaro, Dhammaraja, Mahamuni, Devadevo, Lokagaru, Dhammasami, Tathagato, Swayambhu, Samma Sambuddho. How many? All these words we can explain the meaning. One word just now I mentioned, Maraji. One who defeated Mara. Because nobody else can defeat Mara. Therefore Buddha is called Maraji. Dhamma Raja, Raja of the Dhamma. One who realized, understood, explained. So therefore he is the Raja of the Dhamma, Dhamma Raja. Mahamuni, great sage. Among all those great sages, Buddha is the great sage. So here we have taken only 9. And we can understand who this teacher is, whether he is worthy of respect, whether you are paying homage to idol. So when you recite this word, you gain confidence, you gain inspiration, and then you try to follow him. When you try to follow him, automatically your weaknesses, your immoral practices, your wickedness and certain bad habits naturally disappear from your mind. When you concentrate more on the great virtues and the qualities and the knowledge, the wisdom of the Buddha, this is the way how to follow him. That is why it is necessary for us to know. Otherwise we do not know how to follow him, how to pay respect. Why should we worship or respect him? Bhagava. We started with this word, Itipi So Bhagava. That means this Bhagava means this Buddha. Itipi. This Bhagava is like this, the meaning. Itipi So Bhagava. This Bhagava, this Buddha is like this. Then started Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vidyacharana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purusha Dhammasarthi Sattha Deva Manusanang Buddho Bhagava. Again we are going to explain the meaning of Bhagava. Because at the beginning we did not explain the meaning. So Bhagava is another name for the Buddha. When you read certain sutras and discourses, very often the Buddha used the word Bhagava. Bhagava or Tathagata, these two words. Very seldom he used the word Buddha. He says, Tathagata says like this. Tumbhehi kichang atapang akkhataro Tathagata. You have to work for your salvation. Tathagata can tell you what to do, how to gain. He did not say Buddha says like this. Tathagata says like this. Again Bhagava. Bhagga ragoti Bhagava, Bhagga dosoti Bhagava, Bhagga mohoti Bhagava. Bhagga means destroy. One who has completely destroyed his raga, his lustful thought, craving, attachment. Bhagga dosoti Bhagava, dosa, hatred, ill will. One who has destroyed ill will from his mind, he is called Bhagava. Bhagga mohoti Bhagava, one who has destroyed his illusions, ignorance or misunderstanding, hallucinations from his mind, he is called Bhagava. That means pure mind. Another meaning is most fortunate. Bhagya is a Sanskrit word derived from the same root. Bhagya. Bhagya means fortune. Fortunate one. Bhagava. What does it mean? We are very unfortunate. Right? We are suffering from almost every minute we are suffering from lot of worries, problems, responsibilities, burdens, commitments. Therefore we are very unfortunate. We have no freedom at all. We have no happiness. We have no time to relax. But the case of the Buddha, he is completely free from all these problems that we are facing. He has no worries, no disappointments, no unhappiness, no burdens, no responsibilities, no commitments. But whole life is dedicated to serve others. They are not commitments or responsibilities. They gain happiness. Merit means by doing some service to others, when we gain happiness, that happiness is called merit. If we do not know how to gain this happiness through our good deeds, we won't get the merit. That is very unfortunate. We spend so much, we work so hard, in the end we do not know how to gain happiness. That is our ignorance. So in their case, they serve others without expecting anything in return as reward. As I told you, he has served the whole mankind, even then, regarded as the teacher of the whole mankind. But he never said, come and worship me, respect me. Not necessary for him, but we like it. It gives us happiness when we respect him. Not to please him, but for us to gain happiness, we worship him, we respect him. So Bhagava means very fortunate one. Again, we are unfortunate. Why? Our life is uncertain, Our destiny is uncertain. We do not know what will happen to us after our death. We are trying to do good. We are trying to be religious. Even then, mind is very uncertain. Mind is very unreliable. We can change our mind at any time, subject to commit any kind of evil or immoral thing. Therefore we are unfortunate. But in the case of the Buddha, there are no such uncertainties or unreliable mental attitude. Everything is clear. Experience, bliss. Free from birth, decay, sicknesses and death. That is the final birth. We cannot say this is our final birth. Continuity, life process, continue. We cannot stop this, whether we like or not, because ingredients are there, elements are there, energies are there. So proceed. Whether like or not, whether miserable or not, fortunate or unfortunate, no choice. We have to face. We are responsible for that. So they are free from all these problems physically and mentally. Now you can understand why they are fortunate ones and we are unfortunate ones. So we are also trying to be like them by following their method. I think some of you might have read that article which appeared in Sunday Mail, written by Mr. Buddhadasa, regarding the significance of this particular full moon day. But 2,300 years ago, that means 200 years after the Buddha, during Emperor Asoka's time, Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka on a full moon day like this. Then the king, after having a very long dialogue with Venerable Mahinda, who visited Sri Lanka, accepted Buddhism without any difficulty. After that, the whole country embraced this religion. There was no forced conversion. All of them have come voluntarily to accept this religion. From that day onward, still they maintain this religion. So today I think it is significant for us to speak few words in Sinhalese. Whether you can understand or not, we cannot forget Sinhalese language today. So I invite one of our young reverends, I think they can speak Sinhalese, about 10 minutes in Sinhalese. I can speak like that. You can understand, isn't it? Can, huh? What about Chinese? Mr. Tan, can you understand? Pali you can understand, isn't it? Pali. One day we'll give a talk in Pali. The religion which was originated in India, brought up according to Indian tradition, Indian way of life, nurtured and influenced by the existing religious belief and traditions and culture in that country. When this religion became a popular religion in India, during the Buddha's time, Buddhism was not a popular religion in that country because very few people accepted this religion, because at the beginning people could not understand. To change their way of life, to follow another religion, it has taken few hundred years. Then during the Emperor Ashoka's time, Buddhism has become a popular religion. But there were many other religions. In Hinduism, there are so many denominations still exist. There was another well-known religion equal to Buddhism, Jainism. The founder of this religion, Jaina Mahavira, also related to the Buddha from the same Sakya clan. When you read some stories in that book, Dhammapada, you can see there were a lot of argument, dispute, debate, dialogue amongst the Buddhas and disciples, Jainas and the followers, and Brahmins and Hindus. So there were many who did not agree to accept Buddhism because the Buddha did not want to follow the same existing religious belief and traditions and customs. That is why people were reluctant to accept this religion. Later, when they came to know this way of practicing and ideas, interpretations, when they analyze and observe unbiasedly, they knew it's very reasonable, very rational, meaningful, gone beyond many of those superstitious beliefs and mere imaginations. Then the kings and the ministers, many others, accepted this religion. The most important thing is this: in spite of various popular religions in India, why only Buddhism spread to various other countries? Hinduism was more popular than Buddhism in India. In fact, Jainism also very popular in India. But people in other countries, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, Malaya, Indonesia, at that time known as Java, Sumatra, no Indonesia at that time. Then China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, Siberia, Mongolia. Why they did not accept the other existing popular religions in India? Now this is the most significant issue. The main reason is Buddhism was the only missionary religion that appeared in India. First missionary religion. So other religions that existed at that time were not missionary religion. That means they never had such ideas that they want to introduce this religion to others. That we call missionary religion. The Buddha's advice was, must go forth. Don't stay in the monasteries. Go out. In fact, two disciples should not go together, one by one, because at that time there were very few. Go and tell the public. The Buddha appeared in this world. The Dhamma appeared in this world. The Sangha appeared in this world. And tell them what is the righteous way of life, correct way of life. What are the wrong deeds? What are the evil deeds? What are the wrong beliefs? What are the right beliefs? Go and tell. Then it will become the first missionary religion in the world. Not only that, when they analyze the nature of this religion or the Buddha's message, they realized there is freedom in this religion. It is a rational religion. Encouraged or introduced in such a way for people not to follow blindly, not knowing what they believe and what they follow. But all the other existing religions encouraged, advised the followers to surrender themselves to a supernatural being. The answer to my questions, in spite of various other popular religions that exist in India at that time, why only Buddhism or the Buddha's teaching, Buddha's message spread all over the world without any difficulties, without any political influence, without violence or bloodshed, without holding dinner parties in hotels to introduce religions. Just as a goodwill mission, Buddhist missionaries visited those countries. They were invited. When you study the historical background of Buddhism in China, you can understand this very well. They have invited Buddhist missionaries from India to visit China. It's not that Indian missionaries have reached China, visited China to introduce Buddhism. So there must be something why they wanted to accept another religion. They had Confucianism, Taoism, and many other isms. But they knew there must be something here in the Buddha's ism. The Buddha's contribution to humanity, according to my knowledge, the highest contribution that the Buddha has given is he is the only religious teacher who has given due credit to human beings. Nobody else has done this. That is why even today they are trying to introduce surrender. They try to drag Buddhists also into the same group. Come and surrender. What is there to surrender? The Buddha never advised his followers to come and surrender anything. He said, you can practice this religion as gentlemen, not as slaves. You can practice this religion by maintaining your human dignity, by giving due credit to your human intelligence. What is there to surrender? Yes, you have to surrender your selfishness, your anger, your greed, your jealousy, your stupid ideas, surrender all these things. But not human dignity. This is the way how the Buddha has introduced this religion. That is the highest contribution the Buddha has done to mankind, given due credit to human being, to point out that humans are capable enough to cultivate their mind, their way of life, without depending on any supernatural authorities, without gaining anything from heaven or hell. Your human minds are strong enough, but unfortunately, you have very strong ignorance. This ignorance eclipsed, covered everything. So he introduced a method for us to get rid of this ignorance, to bring up that human intelligence. All of us have intelligence. We are not stupid. Remember this, we are not stupid. We have human intelligence. No any other living beings in this universe who got this kind of intelligence. But today we cannot use this intelligence. It's already closed, submerged. So Buddhism is to cultivate, cleanse, develop, purify this human mind. That is Buddhism. That is the main purpose of Buddhism. All the other activities that we have organized in the name of religion is to do that, only for that purpose. So the highest contribution the Buddha has done to mankind is he is the only religious teacher who gave credit to human beings. He never said that you are sinners. He said you have ignorance. You have weaknesses. But you can get rid of this ignorance or weakness without becoming slaves to any religion or any supernatural living beings in this world. He has introduced the method. But unfortunately, we don't want to practice this method. That is our weakness. We do something else in the name of religion. That is why there is no peace, there is no happiness, there is no satisfaction in our life. Then the Buddha's contribution to mankind is, as a human being, he appeared on this earth, but not as a God, not as a son of God, not as a messenger of God, not as a prophet. He said, I am not a messenger, representative of God. I did not bring any message from God. He stood as a human being. I think you have heard this incident. So one day when he was going somewhere, he met the follower of another religion, a Brahmin. This Brahmin has never seen another human figure so serene, very soothing to the mind, nice complexions, features, appearance. He could not believe that this is a human being. So he approached the Buddha and asked, "May I know whether you have come down from heaven, whether you are one of those gods or devas?" And this is the first time the Buddha said, "I am not a god." Others tried to introduce their teachers as representative of God or son of God. The Buddha says, "I am not a god." Then any form of other supernatural living beings, he said, "No, I am not a supernatural living being. I am very natural." Then he asked, "Are you an ordinary human being?" "No, I am not an ordinary human being." "Then who are you?" So Brahmin could not understand. He says, neither a god, nor an angel, or a supernatural living being. Oh no, even an ordinary human being. Then who are you? This is the way how he answered. He said, "Abhinyayang abhinyatang bhave tabbancha bhavitang pahatabbang pahinang me tasma buddhosmi brahmana." He said, "Abhinyayang abhinyatang." If there is anything in this world or in this universe for a person to understand, to realize, I understood everything. There is nothing in this world that actually I cannot understand. I understood everything. Bhave tabbancha bhavita. I have practiced all the great virtues, the qualities and anything that should be practiced by a holy man. By cultivating all these good qualities, virtues, knowledge, understanding, I reach up to this level. Pahatabbang pahinan me. By eradicating all the evil, harmful attitudes, way of life, such as selfishness, hatred, jealousy, ill will, and so forth. Completely eradicated from the mind. Tasma buddhosmi brahmana. Therefore, I am the Buddha. These are the qualities of a Buddha. Here he did not say, I am the son of God, I am the messenger of God, and this and that. I am the Buddha, and these are the qualities of a Buddha. That means he stood as a human being but not as an ordinary human being just like you and me. You could not eradicate all your dirty, wicked, evil things from your mind. I also could not eradicate all of them. Therefore, Buddha is not ordinary human being just like you and me, but his physical body and your physical body is the same. And now you can understand the nature of his contribution first time. But all the other prophets and founders of all these religions claimed that they were sent by their father or God or as messengers to give the message. So the credit must go to somebody else, but not to a human being. The Buddha has given the credit to human intelligence. He has shown this as a living example that you too can gain this supreme wisdom, enlightenment, purity by using your effort, but not by depending on any supernatural living being. That is why he says we do not surrender to anybody, but we try to cultivate, we try to develop our understanding, we try to reduce all our evil forces from our mind, try to purify the mind. Then what is there to surrender? Then the Buddha's contribution to mankind. When you study the situation at that time in this part of the world, you can study history, not religious book. Then you come to know that it is true. Human beings, especially women, were not given freedom by the religious authorities to practice a religion independently. They were regarded as slaves to religion. Religion was monopolized by authorities. They have closed the gate of heaven according to their religion, and they were holding the keys. And those who come and worship them, offer them, respect them, follow them, get the chance to go to heaven. Then only they go and open the gate of the heaven. This is the way how they introduced religion at that time. Every religion that existed, the Buddha, first time in the human history, he opened this gate. Aparuta tesang amatasya dwaram ye sotavanta pamunchatsu saddam. Hear what the Buddha says. After gaining his enlightenment, he said, I have opened the gate, amatasya dwaram, for you to enter into deathlessness, to see the end of your death if you don't like to die. Aparuta tesang amatasya dwaram. Dwaram is a door. I have opened the door for everybody, irrespective of their caste or creed or anything, if you follow this method. Ye sotavanta pamunchasu saddam. Those who like to listen to this message, pamunchasu saddam, please develop confidence, faith. Listen carefully. This is the way how the Buddha started his message. I have opened the gate for all of you. No monopoly anymore. First time.